have Willie Macc here. I don't know if everyone is familiar with him, but he is or was or still is an entertainer. I guess I'm not sure on that, but we'll find out. And we just had a connection here recently on Facebook, and I saw that he had a story that really needed to be shared, and asked if he was willing to share with us, and he said totally. So now we have the pleasure of having him tell his story and what brought him from riches to rags back up to finding out that his life and his story means a lot to other people, and that's what he wants to do, and we want to help do that. So thank you, Willie, for being with us.
Yes, definitely. So, yes, I am still in entertainment. I'm trying to figure out the best way to tell this story because it's such an interesting story. So there's a story, of course, in the Bible where it's talk about the prodigal son, and I guess I'm a version of that because I'm a preacher's kid. And I was running away because my dad was like, "Hey, I want you to be next and speak," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm out of here." Not only did I just say I'm out of here from St. Louis, I left the state and went as far as I possibly could to Los Angeles. And so while I was out here, I needed some money. And I looked on some ad on Craigslist and I saw, because I was going to school. I was going to school to be a lawyer. I have my degree right now in international business and marketing because I wanted to do law in different countries. So with that, like I said, I needed some money. Saw this gig for this little dating show called "So You Want to Date My Sister." It never aired. It was $500 cash, and it was a concept from this producer who I had no idea who he was until he was like, "Hey, you're a really funny guy. Can we have you on a show that we do called College Hill?" It was the BET version of Real World. And he's like, "If you can go in there and make my sister laugh, you pretty much got the show." And I'm like, "Who is your sister?" He said, "My sister is Tracy Edmonds." If you don't know Tracy Edmonds used to be married to Babyface, and she's currently married to Deion Sanders. And so made her laugh, got on the show, and that sparked my entertainment goals and things that I wanted to do. That led to just because at that time when I was famous, I was like maybe 21 years old. So it was like the things that I look back now on, and I'm like, man, I wish I could have, that whole story. I wish I could have told a younger me X, Y, Z.
Right.
But I make no regrets. I don't have anything that I would change because those stories that I have from back then give me strength to tell other people who might need to hear any of these stories make it for themselves. So with that, I started doing commercials, and you make a lot of money doing commercials. Commercials are what a lot of actors call secret killers because you can make more money on commercials than you can on actual television series, and you will never know it. For example, the Residence Inn commercial that I have, in 1 year I could make easily 100,000 off just that one commercial. And then it's like I had the Applebee's running at the same time with Domino's. And so with that money, I started using to flip homes, and I now executive producing a Lionsgate movie. But before all of that was a really dark time for me because I was trying to. I humor people with this story. There was a time where I was at an award show, and one of the celebrity, Nelly, saw me. He was like, "Hey, you're Willie. We have a party over in Hollywood. You should come." I was like, yeah, I'll be there. So they get in their limo. Somebody else got in their Bentley, drove off. I walked maybe 2 blocks down, got on the Metro bus, paid my fare to go all the way down to Hollywood to try to go to this after party. It's like it was one of those times where I was trying to live up to a name and all this hype that I really did not have. So then I became homeless. I didn't have a place to stay. I was sleeping on people's couches, and it been a long journey. But it's one of those things, like I told you and I said in my video, like I had to keep going because there was no way I was going to end my story like this. There was no way I was going to do that. And then, of course, years later, I finally connect with you all on Facebook, and now I'm here to tell my story. That's the shortest version that I have.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So, when you had to make that girl laugh, was there any pressure on you when you stepped in there trying to think of how am I going to make her laugh?
Yes. It was funny because the thing that I thought would make her laugh, because the way that I do I do stand-up comedy as well as being a motivational speaker. Like with comedy, one of the things that I do is most of my comedy comes from a real place. So the stuff that I was trying to force to make her laugh did not work at all until I said some crazy story about me, and she thought it was the best story in the world. I said, what? That's all I had to say. But yes, there was like all these producers in the room and like directors, and I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? It's hard enough to ask a woman for her phone number versus try to make one of them laugh, especially if she's worth $300 million. But it all worked out.
Well, that's good. That's good. Because there is that. People face that pressure all the time where they're put in situations and they have to perform, and it throws you off kilter because you're not being natural at that point. I feel.
Yes. And people can read it. People can see when they're being natural and they have good intentions versus, okay, this person's trying really hard. We can't stand seeing this person for so many episodes, or even just spend this next 5-10 minutes with them. So yeah, that's very true.
When you make up new routines and you're going into a comedy club, because that's what I feel you did in this particular situation is you're looking at your audience, and you keep shifting what you're doing, trying to hit that hot button that's going to make you a hit in that crowd.
Yes. So that's a very interesting point because each crowd that I perform in front of, I kind of go up there, especially if they have like a MC, or especially if I'm further down the line, I read the crowd and I try to figure out how to use my jokes to make this audience work, or to make my material work with this audience. But the good thing about my material, since most of my material comes from a real place, it's easier because it's like I'm really just telling stories. For example, I'll talk about how when I first moved to LA, I was shot at 4 times, my car got broken into, and my place has been robbed. Wow. But I got that taken care of finally because I broke up with her. And it's like, hey, look, this isn't gonna work. Or I'll talk about how my grandma, who recently turned 103, and I went down to visit her in St. Louis, and everybody's like, oh man, this is so exciting that your grandma's in her early hundreds. It's cool you got a grandma in her early hundreds. And after hearing that so many times, it's like, what is actually early about 103? If you got 103 on the test, it's like, all right, we get it. You're the smart one in the group. You can go away now. So I use a lot of those stories, or I'll talk about my son. Like my son, like when you see me, I don't look like I have a son that's about to be 14 years old. And I explain to people, it was hard because I grew up with my son. Like I had my son at a very early age. And it was weird because my son and I was scared of like the same things growing up. You know, it's really hard to be a father when those type of situations happen. Like my son ran into my room one night and was like, Dad, there's a monster in my room. And I got mad at him because I was like, why are you bringing the monster to my room? Like, obviously, he wanted you. So, like, these are my stories. Like, I just have a whole host of them. And I use, and now what I do with motivational speaking, I use the humor from some of these stories that I have in life, and I put these twists and these spins on it. For example, like I'll talk, like how I use my son in that joke. And I'll start it off by saying something like, I had a son at a very early age, which is a very, like, a real thing, and the hard things that happen in life, but you had to keep going on with it, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll jump into one of these stories with my son that's humor, but then I'll come back talking about how it's not impossible, because I'm possible. A lot of times these single fathers, especially in the urban communities, that they leave, because a lot of them like, oh no, they get frazzled out and they leave. I didn't do that because I was like, look, I caused this situation. I have no regrets because at the time, I wasn't regretting nothing, to tell you the truth. So it's like, how can I deal with these situations that I put myself in and go forward. Like I have a quote where I say, I've never made a mistake in my life, but I made plenty of life-strengthening decisions. So, so that's how I run my life.
So, I'm curious about where you were mentally at your worst, when you were homeless, when you didn't have anything, when you talked about in your video about losing your teeth and how that was a huge thing as far as an entertainer goes.
All right, so that's a good story. So here's the story with that. I have a cousin. It was my favorite cousin in the entire world. As a kid, you cannot tell me my cousin would ever do any harm to me. Like I talk now about how going through that experience, it's like we're family, but we're blood, but it doesn't mean we're family. You can have people that's closer to you that are just friends. People have dogs and pets closer to them than their own family. And I had to realize that because I brought my cousin in when I moved out here to California. He wanted to come live with me, and not only we are the same age, and I was giving him allowance from money that I made from my residuals. He was staying with me. So one day my little brother was out here hanging out, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do a barbecue." So I do a big barbecue. But before I get into that part of the story, my cousin, while he moved out here, maybe like a few years into being out here with me, he developed a really bad drug and alcohol problem. He wasn't like, this was not the cousin that I knew, so I just thought this was a phase. So this particular day, he had like a whole bottle of, I forgot what it was, like gin, and he was smoking weed, and I think he did shrooms. So, mushrooms. And so I do this party, and I made this huge lot of food, barbecued and everything. But before we ate, some of the girls that I had over, they was like, "Hey, let's go to Hollywood." So I was like, "Cool." So we all go to Hollywood except for my cousin. He's like, "I'm just gonna stay around the house." I come back, and my cousin took a bite out of every single piece of food that I made. He didn't eat up a whole burger. He didn't eat up a whole wing. He didn't eat a wing. He just took one bite out of each and every single piece of food. And I'm like, DJ, why did you do that? He was like, because I wanted to see if each piece tasted different. And I'm looking at him like, what? And I'm like, DJ, that's crazy. And so now the girls that I invited over, they was like, what? And he started calling them all B's and H's. And I said, DJ, come on, man, no. And out the blue, he hits me. First punch he threw at me knocked out 3 of my bottom teeth. And end up having it was this fight, and it was a mess. And I was already mad because later on that month, I was being evicted out of my place. So not only was I being evicted out of my place, I had nowhere to go. I've also lost my teeth, and I'm in Hollywood now. Like, I'm on TV. I got these commercials. I have auditions. And first thing they do when they ask you in those auditions room is smile for the camera. So when I sit there and I have to do like a fake smile, or I try to smile with just the top teeth, like emotionally and mentally, I was devastated. And that's when I went through my deep, darkest spots, because I was like, I must not be meant for the entertainment industry. I didn't want to be around anymore. And the best thing, and it was sad because that's when those suicidal thoughts came to me, because it was like, I just wanted quietness. And I wanted, those suicidal thoughts was like, just get away. It sounds like a permanent vacation. I just wanted peace and quiet because everybody's either making fun of me now, like, hey, where's your bottom teeth? And all these negative things that just came across because I didn't know what to do beside the entertainment industry. So I ran out of my money that I made from my residuals. I was asking people if I could stay on their couches and all this other stuff. And I went through such a dark spot that I said, let me humor myself and see how much higher I can go from this dark, deep spot. So I was like, all right, doing all this crying and sobbing and suicidal thoughts and all this other stuff doesn't seem to be helping my situation out. So let me see what I can do. I humored myself. I'm like, let me humor myself and let me see how high I can go from this point. So I was like, I'm gonna stare in the mirror, and I did this literally. I would stare in the mirror with my teeth out, and I forced myself to get used to looking at myself with no teeth. I was like, you're gonna have to be comfortable in this new body transformation that you have in front of you. And I'll sit there and I'll look in the mirror and I'll tell myself, hey, you look good missing 3 teeth. Like, now you have room in the mouth to put more food in. and I would just sit there and I'll make myself laugh about having these 3 teeth that's missing to a point till I got used to it, and I made sure that if I'm gonna get used to this, I'm gonna make sure everybody get used to this. So I started talking about missing teeth on stage because to me, you can't make fun of me if I'm already making fun of myself. Right. So I made myself get used to it. And when I built that confidence back up just in my own personal life, that confidence spread to my auditions, and it was like I made a bigger smile. And when I finally got my dentures in, I started booking jobs because I didn't let the consciousness of, can these people tell that I got fake teeth? Can these people see that I'm in pain right now? Because the dentures was hurting. And when he hit my jaw, or when he hit me in my mouth, he hit me where not only did I lose my teeth, I lost a piece of my bone in my jaw. So it was such a mess that, and like I said, eventually I just forced myself to get used to it and not care, and things just started to work out. And I was like, once I got my money back, I was like, what can I do differently than I did before? And I was asking myself, last time I had 6 figures, I blew it. I was partying and I was hanging out with this crowd and doing all of this stuff, and it was just fun for the moment. And I was like, I told myself I will never be broke again. I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I will never have to sit here and miss a bus and have to sleep on a bus bench because I missed that bus. I don't want to ever have to ask people if I could sleep on their couch. So that's when I started reading. What books did I start reading? I started reading The Richest Man in Babylon. I started reading, I can't think of them off the top of my head. It's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and just a bunch of money management books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all this other stuff. I started listening to Jim Rohn tapes and Zig Ziglar and all these other people, and I was like, see, that's what I needed to have done 10 years ago. But now that I'm in this position, I understand that I need to make my money work for me and make more money so I can keep building for my future. I'm like, either I can blow it all now and just have fun for a year, or I can build it up so I can have fun for the rest of my life. And that's the middle story. That's the middle version of all these stories. It goes short, middle, and then there's like a really long version.
So I know you spoke about this 5-year-old child that passed away. And how, that person, that kind of sparked things for you. Oh, yeah.
So, this is one of those, to me, is one of those really chilling stories. So I had a friend, she's the one that actually coined me the name Willie Macc. My real name is Willie McMillan. It doesn't sound near as cool on stage as Willie Macc. So she would call me, she like, Willie Macc, whatever. And she was like, at that time, she was the only person I knew, or like, felt like family to me in Los Angeles. I was working at this job selling like herbal supplements or whatever. And we worked overnight shift together. We got real close, and it was like, she knew that I didn't have anybody, so during like Thanksgiving and Christmas, she would invite me over, and we became like really, really close, really great friends. And she had a son at this particular time, and me and him became really close. I would come over there. It was just like the little homie. That's just like my little brother to me. And so one day she calls me, and she tells me that his name was, we nicknamed him Fat Daddy. She's like, Fat Daddy passed away, and he was 6 years old, and it blew my mind. I said, what? Not Fat Daddy? Like, this dude was like already meant to be somebody at 6 years old. He was the type of kid where like, he got to that age where he would try to fight me because I'll hug his mom goodbye. He like hit me, get off my mom, this is my mom, you can't have her. And he was just one of those real tough little kids. I'm like, Fat Daddy, why you be acting like that? Whatever. So when I heard that he passed away, I'm like, I'm there. You say no more, whatever you need, blah, blah, blah. And I went to the funeral of this 6-year-old kid, and there was easily 500 people at this church. Packed out, standing wall, and I'm looking around like, did he really affect this many people? And not only did I feel this way, like the head of the fire department, the head of the police department came up and spoke about this little kid. Because like his granddad worked at the fire department, so he would always come to the fire station with the granddad and just hang out there and always would help around. Then I found out like he didn't even play football, but they gave him a football jersey and helmet because his older brother played football, and he wasn't at the age, he wasn't at the requirement to, he didn't meet the requirements to play, but he was like their ball boy. Like he would come on there, he would pass out the waters at this young age. Then not only that, the mayor of the city came out, and I was like, what? And I sat back there and I thought, I've been on TV, I've done movies, I've done TV shows, commercials, I've hung out at all these celebrity parties and know all these people. Then I thought, who would come to my funeral? Whose life did I really touch to where someone would be like, I need to make time out of my day or do whatever I was doing to go pay my respect to Willie Macc. And I thought about it, I was like, yeah, my family would be there, some church members. But then I thought, I was like, I haven't really touched anybody's life in this way and it sent chills up my spine because I was like, here I am, 30 at the time, and I can't say that I've touched anybody's life dramatically or in such a way, and this kid was only 6. And he had this place packed, and everybody had a different story. They had to stop people from coming up to tell stories about this kid. And they weren't just like, he was a cool kid. Everybody had like a really good story of this kid. And it was at that moment where I was like, okay, Willie, how are we going to give back? How are we going to, when you pass away, I want you to leave a legacy. And that's where I'm at right now.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
So have you built a plan to put that into action?
Yes. So my plan now, if you all look at my Facebook and Instagrams, I started going to city council meetings and neighborhood meetings, neighborhood council meetings. And I'm trying to get myself more involved in outreach programs and community events. To not where I'm just involved in it or volunteering, like I'm going up to the podium and I'm pitching ideas. Like I'll be it's funny. Here's two different little stories. So there's Van Nuys Neighborhood Council that I help out with some of their outreach stuff. And I went out there and I pitched some ideas about maybe helping some of the local businesses or with the youth. I would like to do a little talent show and just show light in the community. And then in the Van Nuys City Council meetings, it's nothing but white people. So I went in there, cool, great, whatever. Then I went to where it's called North Hills City Council meeting, and it was nothing but Hispanics. And everybody spoke Spanish, and I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, and I'm sitting there nervous, and I was actually about to leave out. And I was like, look, I'm just going to leave because, one, I really don't know what they're saying. And every time they try to translate to English, everybody turns around and looks at me because they know I'm the one that they're translating for. And I was like, and I just had this little, I don't want to say embarrassment about it, but I had this little, I can't really explain that feeling, but it was like, oh, man, I don't like everybody looking at me. I don't like just smiling and nodding my head, acting like I know what's really going on. But I was like, you know what? No, Willie. Once again, it's not impossible because I'm possible. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to listen to the translation, even if everybody stares at you like they stared at you when you was missing your teeth. You came here with a purpose, and it's up to you to push that purpose. So when they was like, does anybody have anything, like public comments, so I got up and I pitched some ideas to them. I pitched the shirts and talking about, I told them, I could do the shirt in Spanish. And I was like, you can put your neighborhood council there, a logo on there, and then pass them out at your events. And I pitched some ideas that they can do for their youth. And they was like, would you mind being part of our city council, part of our council? And I was thinking in my head, how funny is this? I'm gonna need a translator if I decided to have done that. Like, the message is universal. Now, the language might not be, but what I'm trying to push is, and I think about it like Jerry Seinfeld is worth $800 million. And part of the reason why he's worth so much is because Jerry Seinfeld's show is shown in, like, I believe 18 different countries and in maybe, I think it was like 14 different languages. People love a good message. If you sit there with an idea and you want to push it and make it work, there's a way to make it work. And like I said, like here's a story about my impossible story that I like to share with people. So there was a time where I was sleeping on somebody's couch in a Bellflower. And I wasn't even sleeping on the couch. I take that back. I was sleeping on their floor. They had a one bedroom. They already had somebody in the living room. And he's like, look, only place we have is the floor. And I was like, I'll take it. It's better than a bus stop. So I'm sleeping on the floor. One of my friends who live in Burbank, California, called me up with a job. He was like, hey, Willie, we're hiring we know that you do editing. We want to interview you for an editor's position. I was like, all right, cool. So to get to Burbank from Bellflower is a 3.5 to 4 hour bus ride. So I would have to ride my bike a mile to the train station, take the green line to the blue line to the red line, take the bus, and then ride my bike to the job. That's what I had to do. And I went there and I interviewed and I did a great job. They're like, we love you. We want to hire you starting next week. I was like, perfect. They're like, do you know how to use Avid? Avid is an editing software for those that do not know. And I was like, yes, I know how to use Avid. They're like, perfect. See you next week. Tell you the truth, I have never touched Avid a day in my life. I don't know Avid. You might as well have been, this might have been Mandarin for me. But I needed a job. I was tired of sleeping on this person's floor. So I sat there for the next week. Not only did I sit there for the next week, what I told them at that interview, I was like, hey, just to show you how good I am, to make sure that you all choose the right guy, let me work here for like 3 weeks for free, and you don't even have to pay me. I just want to show you all my work. They was like, 3 weeks for free? Yes. So perfect. Come on in. I was working 3 weeks for free because I needed to get hands-on experience with Avid. And so I came up there to that job early, and I stayed later on some days when I was able to. And I sat there and I was watching YouTube videos. I tell people I went to YouTube University, Google College, and I was learning I crammed it in 3 weeks, and I got to a point where it was like, perfect, we want to hire you, and that's how I got my first job. And the funny part about this story is, like, I finally quit this job and I was training another editor just on how things work at this job, and we was having a conversation, and he was like, I asked him where did he go to school to be an editor. He was like, oh, I did my 4 years. I think it was Cal State, LA. I was like, oh, that's nice. He's like, what about you? What school did you go to? I was like, I learned it on my own off of YouTube and Google. He said, what? No way you learned this by yourself. He's like, I went to school before you, and for like the next week that I was there before I left, every time he saw me, he's like, I was telling my friend the other day that you learned how to do this on your own. They was like, what? I was like, you don't understand. I had to learn. I didn't want to learn Avid. I had to learn because this was the only way I was going to be able to get out of the position that I was in. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite stories to tell.
Yeah, you got to make it happen.
You have to, yes, sir.
Now, did you get ideas from like Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, that helped you? Because a lot of people have a hard time organizing their thoughts to move forward. They're kind of paralyzed by not knowing what to do. Did you just do it because you had to, or were there little golden keys in these books that helped you move forward?
It's a little bit of, I would like to say it's a little bit of both. One thing I learned about all of these books is to become much more business-minded, surround yourself around people. Like, I was one of those people where, let's say, for example, right now, I have maybe 5 years ago, if someone would have asked me for $1,000, like, hey, Willie, I got a great idea for whatever, and I need $1,000. I'd be like, all right, perfect, here's $1,000. And I probably never got that $1,000 back, and I would have been like, what, you said this was a perfect idea. Now, one of the things that I learned in Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich is to surround yourself with people and invest in people who have the knowledge of. So now with that $1,000, I'll ask that person, okay, here, I'll give you this $1,000, but before I give you this $1,000, let's talk about your marketing plan. Let's talk about how you really plan to give me my $1,000 back plus more. Like, I need you to have an experience with that. And one of the funny things that I saw in The Richest Man in Babylon, he was like, he would give loans out. He was talking about how he had a trunk full of trinkets, loans that he gave out. Like, he would ask that person for like maybe one of their prized possessions. Like, I'll give you $1,000, but let me hold on to your ring, which may be even worth maybe just a couple $100. And people would be like, no, I want my ring. He's like, I want my $1,000. So how bad do you really want this $1,000? If you have faith that I'm gonna get my $1,000 back, then you should have faith that you should get your ring back. And so, like, little stories like that make me look at things differently, and just the whole mindset of staying positive. Because like a lot of these books talk about just how you can be in these negative situations, and you have to stay positive. You are what you speak. And even if people don't believe in that, the secret and all of that other stuff, it's much more fun to think positively anyways versus just sitting there thinking negatively. Because I can't think of anybody that sits there and talks bad about themselves and think negatively all day, and that puts them in a good position. That's never worked. So for any reason, speaking positively just feels better, just mentally to yourself. Like, I can sit there and have a bad day. I'm like, well, there's always tomorrow. And I'm like, today was the only day in history that it will ever be Monday. What is it? Today's the 23rd, 2016. That's the only day in history that it'll ever be that day. But you know what? Tomorrow's gonna be the 24th, and I heard the 24th is gonna be a great day. Like, so I like humoring myself doing stuff like that. I make it fun to be positive. Now, I'm not gonna sit there and say that I don't have negative thoughts, or I'm not gonna sit here and say that negativity never comes to my head, but I challenge myself, and I challenge myself to stay positive, and I try to challenge myself to turn these negative situations into more positive. And that's one of the things that I've learned in these books. Like, there was a book that I was reading, what was it? Napoleon Hill, and it was Conversations with the Devil. And in that book, he talked about he had an interview. He interviewed. It was such a creative way for him to do this. He interviewed the devil, and it talked about how the devil was like, "Oh, I can't tell you my secrets on how I control the human mind. Like, I try to put negative thoughts in people's heads and let them build on that, and they can spread that to the next person." It was this way. It was like this backwards, reverse psychology way of trying to get people to be like, "Hold on, I used to do that. I knew there was something wrong with that way of thinking." Like, so reading I used to hate reading. I still do, but it's much more fun now when you try to get something out of it. So, yes.
So why did you hate reading?
Why did I hate reading? I think at the time, it's funny saying it now, but like in school, reading was just one of those things, excuse me. Reading was one of those things where it's like they made you stand up in front of the class. I hated standing up in front of the class. I hated doing the whole assignments of reading. I thought reading was boring at the time, because I guess the thing about reading is, like, you just have to find the thing that interests you. Like, for some people, this humor, it might be a comic book, it might be a coloring book, whatever the thing is. I had to find the thing that worked for me. When I sat there and I was reading Shakespeare, I mean, it was like, it was cool, but at the same time, I wasn't into Shakespeare. But now that I'm reading stuff that matters to me, and not just matters to me, that I figured out how, I guess I'm in a different mindset now. When I was younger, I was focused on sports. I was focused on making sure I looked cool, and reading took away from that. Like, I was playing basketball, running, I was in football, track, and that's what I was concerned with. So when my mom, who was a reading teacher, was like, "Hey, put 2 hours aside and start reading a book," I'm like, I looked at reading as a punishment. But now, I sit here sometimes, now that I'm not working, and I'm like, I just want to read a good book. Like, right now I'm reading The 4-Hour Work Week. And it's like, I don't know, I just have a different mindset for reading now, and I enjoy it.
That's awesome. I just didn't know if maybe you had a hard time learning, or it sounds like, no, that wasn't it for you. It's just more so, it just wasn't your interest.
Yeah, it just wasn't my interest at that time.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Did you have your family and parents support then through all of this? All this, being homeless and going through all of that?
I had my parents and my family support. The thing also was I didn't let my family know too much. And that was a pride thing because my mom was one of those people when I would go home, she'd be like, I want my Escalade. How's my Escalade coming along? Like she had this huge vision of me. And there was times where I just didn't want to let her down. So instead of saying that I'm sleeping on somebody's floor, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about getting a roommate for the next few months. Or instead of telling her that I'm suicidal, because I couldn't imagine telling my mom something like that because I knew it would frustrate her. Not frustrate her, but it would worry her and it would just make her panic. Just come on home. And I didn't want to hear her come back home to St. Louis. And so a lot of the things I didn't even let them know. And I was like, I'm going to force myself to deal with it myself. Though looking back at it, sometimes I wish I would have told my mom. Sometimes I wish I would have got an encouraging word from her, but I was in such a spot where I just didn't want anybody to know. And that's kind of a problem with a lot of people that are going through like bad situations and down situations. Like when you hear of some of these, even just celebrities that kill themselves, and it's like, what? I had no idea this person was feeling this way, or what? He looked like he had it all. Like it still baffles me with like Robin Williams was like, I was a huge fan of Robin Williams back in Mick and Morty, Mick and Mindy, or Mork and Mindy.
Yes.
I was like, no, not this Robin Williams. And it's like he had it all. He had a TV show going on at the same time. He was worth maybe let's humor $100 million. Why? But you don't know what people are going through because a lot of times people just don't open up. Like there's billionaires I found out that sit there and they kill themselves. And I'm thinking of a billionaire. I thought you could buy happiness. If not, it's just fun to try. Like, but when you're mental and when your that emotional state is gone, it's so overwhelming. Money just doesn't even matter. And it wasn't until I was going through those, even though I didn't have that much money, but when I had those mental states, all I wanted was quietness at the time. Like I just wanted to stop hearing everybody's mouth. I stopped wanting to hear people ask me, hey, what you up to now? Because I know I'm not up to anything. I'm tired of people asking. My family's like, hey, I see you on TV. Hey, make sure you send something this way or do something for me. And I'm like, I don't have anything. And I was like, it's like all these thoughts in my head. I was like, you know what? I just want to go away. And I don't have the money to go away. So let me disappear. And that was my thinking. So I can see how when you add money to it, is now you have even more people coming to you asking for stuff and wanting this and all this extra pressure, and you already add these thoughts of quietness in your head. The money doesn't even matter. So it took me a while to understand it, but I mean, of course, now I do. And so yeah, I had my family support if I would have told them, but I didn't even want to add to the thoughts in my head.
Did you feel like you had to disconnect from the people that you were hanging around because all they were wanting was money from you for the most part?
Oh yes, I changed my phone number, email addresses, because it was weird. Because okay, I did 16 episodes on a BET show. The show made millions, and it became a very popular show to a point where MTV licensed to pick it up, and it started airing on MTV, and it was one of the very first shows BET ever had that actually went on to a more mainstream network. And it went overseas. It was in Africa. It was in UK. So people saw this, and it made all this money, and they thought that I had all this money. And the thing is, BET didn't pay us a penny to be on their show. We did it for free. So, yes.
Why?
Well, at that age, I heard 3 months in the Virgin Islands, all expense paid for. I was like, I can use a vacation. And so I took it. I mean, when you talk to you talk to some of these spring breakers or those people that they got caught up with. This is a more darker subject. But Girls Gone Wild, those girls didn't get paid a penny, but they guy that made that show made millions.
Yeah.
They just partying. They just partying for have a good time. This guy filmed it with just a little home camera, very little production cost, and made all this money. So people like that would do that for free. When you now throw in 3 months in the Virgin Islands, you'll be at all the award shows, the gifting suites, and you're this, I don't want to say country boy because I'm originally from Arkansas. That's where I was born. And like when you this guy from Arkansas and you spent your life in St. Louis and now you're throwing this at me, fame and 3 months in the Virgin Islands and Miami, I'm like, let's do it. So, yeah, fun times.
So how long did it take to film 16 episodes?
Well, we was in the Virgin Islands for 3 months, and they just followed us around for 3 months, got every conversation. A lot of it was producer push. Like now, there's so much pressure in reality shows where a lot of these reality shows are scripted. But when I was starting in reality, it was still fairly new. So it wasn't necessarily scripted, but there were situations that was producer pushed. Like, for example, they did a great job of figuring out the best 8 people. They had 4 people from LA and 4 people from the Virgin Islands live in a house together and go to school together. But they knew that the girl from Orange County would conflict with one of the girls from, let's say, from the Virgin Islands. Because for example, the girl from Orange County, she lived this lifestyle of the Orange County lifestyle of having all this money and all this hanging out with Mercedes Benz and BMWs. Then when you go to a place like the Virgin Islands where people are still riding like bicycles with the carts, and that's how you get around, and it's like everything that you knew that was Orange County is stripped away. You get frazzled. You're like, oh my goodness, where's the nearest Nordstrom? I need a Nordstrom. Y'all don't have a Nordstrom's? Oh my goodness, what do you mean I can't get a Starbucks latte here? What? How do y'all survive? And now the people from the islands are starting to get offended. Like, hey, look, this is how we live. We like it like this. We live a very humble lifestyle. Who wants humble when you can get a sale at Nordstrom? Like, and they started conflicting. And the producers knew this would happen to a point where they start, hey, why don't you all go play this game of which one would y'all marry, which one would y'all date, which one would y'all kill? And they knew everybody from the Virgin Islands, like, well, we would like to get rid of Crystal. We get rid of Crystal. Crystal would then be like, what? I'll get rid of y'all too. And they start filming. Like, hey, action, fight happening. And like that happened all the time. Or they were like, hey, let's all go to, I don't know, they'll find one of them nicer places in the Virgin Islands, and then Crystal will be happy, and the Virgin Island people will be like, this isn't really our thing. They'll be like, what you mean this isn't a thing? They got this coffee, they got this type of cream, and they're like, yeah, this is nasty. Nasty? They'd be like, start the cameras. So that's kind of how a lot of it was done.
Wow.
They built the conflicts, yes.
Wow. So it's unscripted scripted.
It's unscripted scripted, yes.
It's a mind game.
Yes, that's all it is. It's a good mind game. Yeah.
So, do you, did I hear that you flip homes?
Yes. So, one of the things that I do now with the money that I've made is I started flipping homes. My little brother, there's 5 of us all together. I'm the oldest of 5 boys. And it's weird how we can all be raised together and just have completely different, we're completely different people. There's me. I'm more the entertainer. I like the flashiness of it all, and I like trying to figure out how to put all these creative thoughts together. Then there's Gabriel. Gabriel is the second oldest, and Gabriel's more of the tell it how it is, where it's like sometimes you like, Gabe, just be quiet, let this situation play out. He'd be like, nah, someone needs to know how I feel, and he's that person. Then there's Jonathan. Jonathan is the one that I humor and I say every family wish they have a Jonathan. Jonathan plays piano. He's a great singer. He's part of like every leadership conference, that youth leadership conference. He started working at Boeing while in college. They recruited him while he was still in college. Got out of college and they gave him a finance job, and John's doing very well. And then there's Jarvis. Jarvis is more of the fashion person. Like Jarvis will be on a bus, but he will be the cleanest person on the bus in the world. Like Jarvis thinks every bus aisle is just a runway show. So then there's James. James is the one where you say the youngest is always the more spoiled one because your parents are so worn out after the first four. They just let the little one just do whatever he wants.
So not true. So not true.
So somebody's the youngest, huh?
No, not true. I fought. I had to fight.
Yeah, you fought, but the parents always usually favor the younger one. If not in your family, then in my family, they favor the younger one.
Yeah.
So Jonathan was like, what are you going to do this time that you have money? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, here's what you need to do. Because Jonathan was like, I'm studying these codes. Like John was in some type of class, and he was like, here's what you need to do. You need to start finding these foreclosed properties in St. Louis, fix them up, and flip them. And he's like, not just flip them, because right now St. Louis is going through a gentrification. Like they're finding out a lot of these spots downtown St. Louis. It's kind of like in a lot of downtown areas where it's like they want to start making it more of a historically placed home. So of course they start increasing the prices and all this other stuff. So my brother was like, hey, let's start moving some families back in that we can screen and improve and all this other stuff. And it's so cheap in St. Louis. For example, the first house I bought was a 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms. It had like maybe, let's say, a 1/4 acre in the backyard. And I bought it for $5,700. $5,700 foreclosed, exactly. I put $4,000 in, put maybe like $3,000 in the bank just in case. $4,000 in, moved someone in, and I was renting it out for $950 a month, and then they was living in there for 3 years. So it's like the first year I made my money back plus some, and the other 2 years was all profit. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let's get another house. So we end up getting another house, and now we're at a point where we're getting bigger homes. So that's part of how I'm using my money. But I'm still in that part where I wish I had a mentor, because right now it's a lot of live and learn experiences where it's like, I wish I would have gone this way. Oh, what you mean you can buy and flip a home and not even touch any of your money? Like there's so many different pieces to this real estate game. There's like, man, I wish I had someone tell me all of this from the beginning, because this is really interesting. Because like I said, I don't mind using the money out of my pocket because I have it. But so I'm like, I want to start getting to a point where I'm getting bigger. Not just I want to get apartment buildings. I want to get commercial properties, and I want to get them in areas where I see where it's starting to build up. So let's say you end up buying this property over here, you can sell it to Walgreens. I'm like, you mean you can sell to companies your property? It's like, yeah, my brother Jonathan was telling me how he had a friend, he bought maybe like 4 homes in this area that he saw that maybe like blocks down. They started building up these nicer homes, and they built a school there. And he's like, let me buy these 5 homes here. He bought the 5 homes there, cleaned it off, fixed the land up a little bit, and went to, it was Walgreens. They have like a real estate department in Walgreens apparently, and told him like, look, all these homes are building up over here. He pitched it. That's like, all right, we'll give you $1 million, and he only put maybe like $50,000 into that land because they saw the profits that could possibly come from that. So that's where I'm trying to work myself into getting to more of that.
Fantastic. So are you doing any of the nail driving, or are you just depositing cash?
You can tell from that laugh I just gave you. Well, because I wouldn't mind doing the nail driving, but because it's in St. Louis and I'm in Los Angeles, right. I'm more the money person. So, yeah. So my brother said, hey, we found a property for $20,000. It'll probably take another $15,000, $20,000 to fix it up. I'm like, all right, here's the money. They have a contractor that they work with. They get it, fix it, and we plan on flipping it before the year is over, so we don't have to pay the house property tax on that. Yes.
Yes, I understand those house property taxes. Not cool. Not cool.
Yeah.
So, you see in the future, you having bigger financial investments in homes,
Mm-hmm.
and you started that after you were, well, after you were homeless, and you
Mm-hmm.
started to build some cash. So you must have been talking to your brothers, or they were talking to you about things to do with your cash, because it sounds like you have some pretty savvy brothers.
I have a savvy brother,
All right.
and the rest are savvy-ish. But yes, Jonathan is very smart with money. Like I said, he does the finances for Boeing, and he's always at some of these events where they talk about money management. And the problem with Jonathan, not necessarily it's a problem. Jonathan has a little money, but he doesn't have the money. I have the money, but I don't really necessarily have the skills. So with our powers combined, we form a very nice Megatron.
Absolutely.
Using. So that's kind of what it is, because Jonathan is when he was in school, he had a real estate professor. Like, he was taking up real estate in school because he was trying to decide if he wanted to go the real estate route or the financing route. But then when Boeing offered him the job, he went financing. It was like a guaranteed job. But then I'm at a point where I was telling John, I was like, look, it's nice that you have a great 9 to 5. I mean, Jonathan is what, 26? He makes maybe like close to 80 a year, all these benefits, single, no kids. It's like, I get it. It sounds amazing. But 5 to 10 years from now, Jonathan, I want us to end up being the Mac Property Brothers. It got to a point where, because with the things that I've been doing, and I talked about flipping homes, we actually have I'll send it to you all, a short sizzle that we put together about us flipping homes, and it got picked, and executive producer saw it and was like, I would like to build a show around YouTube flipping homes. And we was so we're slightly in the works with that. There's some stuff that he wants us to actually do before we actually start to go out and pitch it. But yes, so I would love to do more of that, because it's such an interesting dynamic, because you have Jonathan that's in St. Louis, and he does this financing for Boeing, and he has the smarts. And then you have the other brother who is an ex-reality star on commercials and TV and movies with the money, and you combine those together to flip homes in St. Louis. And with all of our brothers together, it makes a very interesting show.
It does.
Yeah. Powerhouse right there.
Yes.
Now, are you looking for mentors? Are you
Yes.
You are
Yes.
looking.
I'm completely looking for mentors. I actually made a Facebook post maybe like 2 months ago. I just write, a closed mouth doesn't get fed, ... And in all caps, I'm like, I'm looking for a mentor. If y'all can mentor me, or y'all can find me a qualified mentor, I am open and willing to learn. So yes, I would love to have, like I said, because I would love to have that experience from another person. Because right now, everything that I learn is from reading, which is good, of course, or watching YouTube videos. But I want that person, because I'm more of a hands-on person. I like seeing people actually do it. And I'm great at taking notes and just mental notes, and I'm always writing it down. So yeah, I'm definitely looking.
Excellent. So, people out there, if you know a good mentor, then
yes,
let them know about Willie and what he's doing, and I'll keep my ear to the ground. And I just got involved in a mastermind group, and that's an amazing group of people. So they've helped me a lot. I've only been to like 2 or 3 meetings, already promoting my book and doing all kinds of things. So that's pretty important. And where do you see your, or how do you feel about where your acting career is going?
My acting career is in a very interesting spot. It's so fun, because there's so many things in the works right now where it's like I don't know how to really feel and really act about it. Okay, let me give you all a better example. All right, so Residence Inn, I told you all how much we made off of Residence Inn, and how big of a thing that is. So we actually, last week on the 15th, they just renegotiated our contracts for an extra 21 months, and they are now talking about giving us much more than what we already made. So I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Then the other thing that's in the works, this is such a funny story because me and the other actor are really joking about it right now, but it's more of joking because it's like a nervous joking. You know how people are like, oh yeah, hey. Like that's that's the mood that we're in. So here's what happened. So if you look it up, y'all remember all those Kia Soul commercials with the little hamsters and blah blah blah. So they're talking about replacing. You haven't really seen too many of these Kia Soul commercials anymore because they're talking about replacing the Kia Soul or the Kia Soul hamsters. So they had this last year at this exact time. They was auditioning for the new Kia Soul or what they're going to replace them with. So they casted. They had this really big casting, and it was me and this other guy. His name is Adam. Adam and I booked it. We shot 2 spots. I'll send that to you all too. We shot these 2 spots. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called Kia Fold Jelly Beans and Kia Optima Blindfold. And so while we was on set, the agency, it's like maybe let's say it's about 15, 20 people. The agency and the creative directors and the clients came up to us like, oh, we love you all. We want to shoot maybe 8 to 10 more of these spots. Now, if you shoot 8 to 10 more of these spots, you end up becoming, they're trying to make us like the Jan from Toyota or Progressive Lady with Flo. They were like, you guys are it. We was like, what? They was like, not only that, they said, we want to give you all a Hulu show. We was like, a Hulu show and the commercials? What? Like, we was all excited. But we was like, please don't play with us because, you know, we're actors and we're very emotional because some years you can be booking and going crazy. The next year, you can be homeless. Trust me, I know. So now last week, my agent calls me and it's like, hey, Willie, we have an audition for you for Kia. I was like, oh, well, you must have a mistake because I'm already under contract with Kia right now. So I understand y'all mistake. You can just let them know. That's like, no, they got a new director. It's the same production company, same clients, but they have a new director, and the new director wants to re-audition you with maybe like 15 other people. I was like, what? So I went in last week. I re-auditioned for the part that they already gave me and already told me they was gonna make us the next Kia Hamsters in the Hulu show. So they will let us know on the 1st of November if they're going through a whole debate thing and they're trying to decide it. But they was like, we're for real this time. If you book it, this will be it. So there's a lot of these little things like that that's in the works. Like I said, with the reality show with me and my brothers flipping homes, that there's always these things in the works. But the thing that I try to do is, one, I try not to focus on it. Because if you sit there and focus on it, it will throw off your entire day. Because you're just sitting there. Because here's what you do. As an actor, you start to think about, if you do 8 to 10 spots, that's humor that's close to $1 million. And now you start to think about, what could I do with $1 million? Oh, I can buy my mom that Escalade she always wanted. I can help pay this off. I can do that. And you build and all this stuff with the $1 million. Okay, I can invest this. I can go see Gary and Angie. We all go party it up, go to lunch. And it's like you plan all this stuff out, and then when the first comes, and you don't get that phone call from the first on the first from your agent, you start to go through these. What you mean? I was praying, I was doing this, I was hoping and wishing, and like you get really down on yourself. What could I have done better? Why did they not choose me? Even after it was guaranteed to me before, I understand this industry. So what I try to do with my time now is, what can I do to be more positive, and what can I do to be more involved in just other stuff too? Not only because I want to do this, but because it's also a perfect distraction from the entertainment industry that you're in. So that's when I'm starting to do these. I'm starting to do panels, and I'm starting to travel doing motivational speaking. I started developing my what I say, my Motivate clothing line, and like Caution. Like the one I have on now, Caution, Success and Progress. I have another one where it says it's not impossible because I'm possible. So any time that you have available, I would love to put it towards doing something positive, something to progress my life. So like I said, right now, a lot of the problem a lot of people my age or even especially younger have is they live in the moment. They think that they have the future ahead of them. So that's like I said, when I saw Fat Daddy at 6 pass away, and it was just like he was a healthy child, and the way that he passed away was so sad. Oh, I didn't even tell you all the story. So they had a pool in the backyard. It's one of those situations where they were swimming, had a barbecue in the backyard. The mom goes in the house to go to go get some more food. She was preparing. She comes outside and sees Fat Daddy floating on top of the water and couldn't save him. And I was like, and I've been in like a car accident before, and it's like right now I think about like any moment. No, it's so crazy that nothing's promised. What can I do in these moments that I do have to where let's humor that I believe that I will, I think that I will, and all this other good stuff. I'll make it to November 1st. But if I do not, what could I leave to where people was like, hey, we like Willie might not have been the Kia hamster, but Willie was able to push this motivational line. He came and spoke to our kids. Willie came and pushed these subjects in our outreach programs, and Willie did all these other things. I am more focused on leaving an impact now than I am into receiving. Like I have this other quote where like if you extend your arms to give, you're already in the right position to receive. So that's how I'm looking at everything right now.
It's fantastic. Do you feel that is what pulls you out of the depression that people are in, whether that's their health or their financial situation? It doesn't matter what it is.
It doesn't matter what it is. Well, I was listening to, what is his name? Bill Burr, and he was talking about just giving. He's like, it's so crazy. He's like, the more he end up giving, the more he end up receiving. And it was such a cool little story. And it was like, that's exactly where I want to be. So if that's how I want to be, that's what I need to start doing. So I don't try to necessarily just give out financially, but if I could give out mentally, if there's a person that I could talk to, if I could do whatever I can do just to give, if I have it, it's theirs. So now I look at it like, this money isn't my money. This money is meant for me to do something positive with. Like I think I talked about it on another interview where my church needed to finish this building, and I wrote a check. I was like, and it was crazy because I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't want to write this check. What if something happens to me and all this other stuff, and I might need this money back? And the next morning, I just said, you know what? I'm gonna give the money. I don't care what happens because I've been broke before. I know what it's like. I know how to bounce back. The money is just money. I can make some more of it. Watch me. So I gave the check, and literally 2 days later is when I got that phone call from my agent, like, hey, they want to renegotiate your contract, and instead of giving you this much, they want to give you that much. I said, what? I said, hey, this works. So, and it's not just giving, it's like planning and like, okay, let's see what happens. It's like you have to do it from a place where you're not expecting to receive. If you do it expecting to receive, most of the times it won't happen. But my uncle did this thing down in Arkansas where he had his watermelon. We had maybe like, let's see where it was like at my grandma's house, 15 acres she had in her backyard. So we went out, we was eating, and instead of throwing the watermelon away, he just threw it on the ground, and just when we was done, we walked away. And like literally, however many months it was later, we went back to that far part of the farm, and noticed that there was a watermelon garden right there. It was like we wasn't even expecting to have a watermelon garden just right there. It's just those type of things, like when you just give and just throw it away and walk away from it, you come back and just tends to happen.
I totally agree. Tends to happen.
Yeah.
And if you're focused on the positive, you don't have time to think about the negative.
Exactly. That's exactly what I like to hear. That. Yes.
Wow. Well, thank you, Willie. Like, this has been awesome. And
thank you.
I know I don't know if you two have connected and, you've spoken with Gary on his story, but he's got quite a story to share as well. So, but this is for you, so.
I would like to know your story. Where we'll either talk later or if it's online, I would like to watch it and all of that. I know you have a book. I plan on getting your book too, so I will hit you up later about trying to figure out how to get there.
Okay. I started to learn to read and write when I was 49.
Huh.
And I lived in my van traveling around the country, and I taught myself to read and write. And in that 6 years it took me to learn to read and write, I wrote my first book.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's so much more. There's so much more to his story, though. So there's a lot more.
Yeah.
I could imagine. I could only imagine. He only gave me a sentence, and I'm blown away.
Yeah.
So.
We are very, very, very lucky that he is still around to be here. So that is one thing where it was a possibility that he wasn't. So yeah.
Gosh.
So we can talk later and share, and there's some things of my story on LivefoodDtox where Angie has interviewed just me, and I'm waiting because Angie has quite a story too.
Ooh.
And I'm waiting for her to get ready to share that story.
We need to finish you first.
Okay.
So
there's much more for his story. So we will finish that soon.
All right.
And I am the older one here, so of course I have a longer story.
Just timeline wise.
And my timeline is longer. But yeah, man, it was amazing, and I'm so glad that we connected with you and that you would do the show. You have an amazing story, and it, to me, will help people realize no matter where they're at, that if they can find a way to either connect with somebody or read books and find that positive spot in their life and focus on that, there is a way to climb out.
Yes.
No matter how desperate you feel or it seems or how alone you feel, there are people out there waiting to connect with you and help. So, love what you're doing. I love your story, and I am so glad that you are back. And the shift that I see in you, in your mental, ability to shift from I'm going to use this money for good and not party.
Right.
And so many people do that. I mean, I did that myself when I had money, and it's like money can be like sand sifting through your fingers. You know. And
yes.
We all dream of having it, and once we get it, we're not trained to know what to do with it or how to protect it, and it just drifts away. And it's such a shame that happens, but that's our schooling.
Yeah, they say 70% of athletes go broke, and that's just such a crazy number. And just people that win the lottery, they say even more of them go broke. And I'm like, what? You had all these millions? But you're right, like saying.
Right. Most people that win the lottery are in bankruptcy in 5 years.
Ain't that crazy?
It is. It's insane. But if you don't know how to manage money, it's just gonna drift away.
Right.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So I'm on the building process myself.
Nice.
And using my time right now, like you're doing, to give back to people for inspiration and motivation, and that there is hope beyond their circumstance right now. So
yes,
we work mostly with people that are having health issues and helping them get back on their feet so that they can actually go out and be productive in society again. And that is such a huge step, and what you're doing too. You're helping families get into homes.
Yeah. But especially the healthy lifestyle is such an important thing to push out there, because I'm going through that with my uncle right now, and he's it's so crazy because like when I look at younger pictures and I send it to him sometimes where he was my age and he was like my size and now he's like 450 some pounds and it's like, oh, come on, now you're suffering from gout and all this other health related issues and all you have to, and in my head I just think all you have to do is not, I'm not saying stop, but just start less and less and less and less and just instead of eating this, eat that. But it's like I understand because I'm in my head, and I told him, I'm like, if you need to lose weight because when you pass away, I'm not trying to pick up this big old casket. Like, I ain't trying to go find a custom casket. Dog. Like, you need to figure this out. But yeah, health is such an important issue, and I'm learning that myself. Like, I did this is such a crazy story. So when one of the things I did when I didn't have the money, I did those clinical trials. And I did a clinical trial, and I tried to do a second one. And they was like, whoa, my blood pressure was 192 over 98. It was something like that. And they was like, you're a walking stroke. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm like, I'm fit. They was like, what do you eat? I said, ramen noodles. They said, what else? I was like, not much else. Like, I was on a ramen noodle diet. That's like, you know, and then he explained to me about the sodium and all this other stuff, and I was like, what? Like, I had no idea. I was so scared. I was like, I haven't had a ramen noodle since, and this was maybe like 6 years ago. I have been scared. I look at them in the grocery store like, you people are evil. But yes, it's like you said, like being healthy is just a beautiful way of life. So yes, I agree.
Well, Willie, it looks like you and your uncle both need lots of detox. So
yes.
Oh,
True.
And I can't wait to get some of your clothes. We will have to put a link in the bottom so people can go there and check out because it's basically sweatshirts and t-shirts that you've got with the
it's not impossible because I'm possible.
Right.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yes.
It is so true.
And that's something that I definitely push on like young people because I'm like, especially nowadays, because like I'm scared to fly, but my dad teases me about this because I'm scared to fly. Only because I don't understand how something that's 50 tons lays in the air for so long. Okay, fine, it's thrust in the air and the lift and all that. But just the idea that someone figured that out. I even go far as back, and I tell kids this too, and I'm like, someone figured out, when you look at a record, someone figured out how to put the vibrations that come from your voice on a piece of plastic. Someone figured that out. And I tell kids, like, I have this thing where I do this class where it's called the next generation of ... Because, like, before there was these cell phones, there was the big cell phone. Before that was a landline. Before that, there was just letters. I'm like, you all are the next generation of. Whatever it is, you all are going to figure it out. Somebody in your age range is going to figure out the next thing in the world. Like, Star Trek, they had the cell phones on Star Trek, and they thought that was the futuristic device. Now we have cell phones, and what you mean you don't have a cell phone? Who are you? He must have just got out.
You don't get a cell phone when you just get out?
Yeah, right. They give you a complimentary cell phone when you get out. So yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Willie. I know that we both extremely appreciate your time and your story, and I'm so glad that we connected. And I can't wait to see more. I can't wait for November 1st for you.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
And
yes.
Any last words you'd like to say to people to motivate them or help them out?
Yes. Here's I'm going to try to make this 30 seconds besides telling you all to look up Willie Macc and accessyoursuccess.net and see what I'm up to, and my clothing line is on there. I like to end with this story. So I had a dream a few months ago where it was me and my friend. We were starving in this village, and we was walking through this village and asking for food and all this other stuff. No one was like, everybody was like, no, 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 no. And there was this big, beautiful fruit tree in this dream, and I tried to reach for the fruit, and my friend was like, Willie, no, don't eat the fruit. The fruit's poisonous. I was like, what? I was like, okay. So the next day comes by, I go for the same fruit. He's like, Willie, no, the fruit's poisonous. I'm like, but I'm starving. It's like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Third day, I reach for the fruit. My friend's like, no, Willie, the fruit's poisonous. I'm like, look, I am starving to death right now. Either I starve to death or I eat this fruit and die full. So I go for the fruit, I eat the fruit, I enjoy the fruit, I scrunch my eyes because I'm ready to die, and I open up my eyes and I realize that sometimes in life, it's not the fruit that's poisonous, it's the people around you and the situations around you that could be poisonous. So I want to tell people to go for your fruit. Whatever that fruit is, that business, whatever your dream is, go for it. Eat it. Taste it. It's delicious.
Oh, that is amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you. What a great story that is.
Yes.
And it's something people need to hear.
Yes.
I may cut this little section out and set it aside so if people want just a quick story from you.
Okay.
That is a great story.
Yes, thank you. This has been fun. I'm excited.
I wish I could have seen you this whole time, Willie, but I'll have to rewatch and see.
Cool.
All right.
So, thank you again. Love you
All right.
and what you're doing.
All right, you all take care then.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Good luck with your commercials.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.